Now what you need to do is create content. You need to create sequences and campaigns around that. So the question is, what's your best messaging, but what's your best content? Because we know content tells a story. And so we talk about content journeys as one of your key plays. Anytime you have a personalization category, you need a content journey that guides the buyer journey.
Welcome to the Marketing Expedition Podcast, an auditory journey through the latest in marketing, branding, and advertising. Now, here's your Marketing Expedition guide, Ray Allen.
On this episode of the Marketing Expedition Podcast, I get to speak with Brent Keltner, PhD, and he's the founder and president of Winalytics, LLC, a go-to-market and revenue acceleration consultancy. He is the author of the Revenue Acceleration Playbook and has been a featured contributor in CEO World, Customer Think, Marketing Profs, and Training Magazine. Winalytics helps clients reach their top growth potential by personalizing value in sales and go-to-market strategy to each buyer's roles, goals, and market segment. Winalytics clients are growth stage and two enterprise companies selling to buyers in the K-12, higher education, corporate HR, industrial, retail, and automotive sectors. And before starting Winalytics, Brent was a revenue leader for more than a decade at companies including Kaplan, Adventures, plus Delta Partners, and Collegiate Link. He began his career as a PhD social scientist and spent 10 years conducting qualitative research interviews at Stanford University and the Rand Corporation. It was at Rand that he first learned the power of buyer value personalization. And if you drop the product pitch and focus on personalizing every single buyer and customer interaction, you will grow faster. As Brent says, authenticity always wins. And we're going to talk all about marketing and business strategy topic, lifecycle personalization, content and buyer strategies and playbooks and all the fun things, storytelling. You cannot miss this episode. There is so much wisdom for us to listen to. So stay tuned for that. But first, it's time for your Marketing Essentials moment, the basics that you need to help you continue to build your brand and your bottom line. This week's topic, I wanted to cover how to get hired at an advertising agency. I've been trying to hire recently and have gone through the entire process and have done a number of things to get us in that position of being able to hire. So I wanted to share with those of you who are listening. I know I have lots of students listening and people maybe at other agencies or maybe just looking for their next job. And as somebody who hires people in our agency, I thought it might be useful to give you some pointers or tips of what it would look like to then get hired at an agency, things to think about. And maybe this is even if you're not necessarily looking for an agency job, but still can help you during your hiring process or, looking for job process. First of all, I think that when you are applying for a job, maybe you're going to use Indeed or ZipRecruiter or Handshake or the career postings of, local, whatever it is. When you put your resume out there, make sure you have two sets of eyes on it to proof it before you actually post it. One of the things that I did when we are hiring, it's really difficult to weed through so many different so many different resumes. And it's sad but true, but if you have proofing errors or grammar errors, or, maybe you just use ChatGPT and it was very inhumane and just very much computer generated gibberish, if you will, how can you customize it to make it your own and to allow you to stand out? And for crying out loud, please proof your work. Please, please. I can't emphasize that enough because it's so important. And you might eliminate yourself from the position just because you had a proofing error. It's sad but true. I try to look at it, but sometimes when you have so many different resumes to get through, and we're in an industry that is very much about proofing, then if you can't even proof your own work, then I'm just sorry. It's gonna, you're not gonna be on the top of the resume pile, right? So think about proofing your work, please. I cannot, again, emphasize that enough. Another thing is LinkedIn. Also, I should have said LinkedIn too. You can apply through LinkedIn, which is a number one, well, top, I would say top way to get a job is on LinkedIn. You can title target, you can company target, you can do all those types of things. You can say that you're open for work, all of that. So again, on LinkedIn, make sure that you have your LinkedIn profile up to date, that you're posting at least, I don't know, once a week or something of that nature. You're commenting, engaging, and not just setting it and forgetting it, right? Go connect with the people that you're trying to get a job interview with. Go and do some things to like the company page, investigate the company page. What kinds of things are they posting? Look at their other employees that are on the company. Maybe just understand if you might be a good cultural fit for the company that you're applying for that agency, for example, because, certain agencies have certain different cultures and ways about doing things, and location, for example, we're 30 minutes from the main city. And so, there's a little bit of a commute to get to our studio in Nampa because we're right outside of Boise. It actually doesn't take as long as what people think it does to get there. But if you're going to apply for the job, make sure it's somewhere you want to commute to. Don't waste people's time and say, oh, well, that's too far for me to drive, which floors my mind that happens. But seriously, if you're not going to want to make the commute, then don't apply. And yes, okay, we work hybrid scenarios and, remote situations, but there are times where we do come to the office and it needs to be comfortable to you to be able to get yourself there. If you have reliable transportation, we do have a bus system. People have ridden the bus to get there before, but don't waste my time if you're not going to come and commute to where we are, period. It's just frustrating. It's hard to recoup that time if you're going to, go through the interview process and then just ultimately say, nope, I'm not going to commute. So please just do all of us a favor and don't even bother if you're not going to want to make the commute. So that's another thing that happens. Just, make sure it's within the geographic region that you are comfortable with. Also, if they say that they want somebody in person and they want somebody to be there in their local area, don't bother applying, because guess what? I got flooded with resumes from people from all over the country when I just specifically said that I would like somebody within our area, within our region, those types of things, unless they're offering relocation services, those types of things. But I mean, it just gives the person who's trying to hire a lot more to weed through and go through. And then you might just get dismissed anyway because you don't live there locally and that's what they asked for. Just another thing that I picked up along the way. Another thing is what happens in social media stays on social media. And so if you are posting things that are not going to be all that advantageous for a prospective job, maybe just think about what you would post or not. I tell my kids, would grandma be okay with what you're posting? And if the answer is no, then maybe just don't post it. Just don't post it, right? You could get yourself in, out of that position because of maybe some things that you would otherwise not choose to share. So just keep that in mind. Your social media is out there. It's public information unless you have a private setting, but your socials are a reflection upon you, and it can be looked upon as not in your favor if you're posting things that don't be in alignment with the company that you're trying to apply for. And if the company that you're applying for is not in alignment with what you believe or what you post or what you whatever, just think about that before you do that. Okay. Remember, what happens in Vegas stays on Facebook, right? It doesn't stay in Vegas. There used to be the tagline, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Yeah, not anymore. Other things to kind of think about as you are going through this job journey. It's okay to follow up. It's okay to send a handwritten thank you note for the interview. It's okay to check in, right? And follow-ups sometimes help you get further along in the pile of resumes that they're going through. Follow-ups are definitely something that help you stand out and keep you memorable. I love it when I get a handwritten note in the mail to thank me for the interview. And it's thoughtful. It's meaning that you really want the job in some indication, right? So just make it easy for the people to follow up with you too, if they do want to take it to the next step. I will tell you, because Indeed sets it up where you can do interviews through Indeed. Sometimes it's because if I do a whole bunch of different interviews in the day, I'll be honest, I can't always remember everybody's name, although I should and I try my best. But sometimes if you answer the phone with your name, it helps me out so much. So then I remember exactly who I'm talking to, and then I make sure that I got the right person. So when I answer my cell phone, I always say, "Hi, this is Ray," or "Hello, this is Ray." Just I say my name. So if you say your name when you answer the phone, if somebody calls you, it is so helpful to the person wanting to interview you. And that way they also know that they got through to the right person. So that is super helpful. Other things that you can do, reach out. It's interesting because I always want my employees to feel good about the new hire too. And so having my employees work and talk to the potential new recruit is super helpful. So talking to my staff at the agency is encouraged, and it's kind of a nice thing when people want to talk to them and ask questions and, what's it like here? What's your favorite part of the job? What do you not like about the job? Those types of things. There's, inevitably people always say what they don't like about the job is time tracking, which is interesting. But anyway, just, follow up, talk, communicate, be honest, be open and honest, all of the things, right? Try not to be too annoying, but also being assertive and following up is going to super help you stand out. Yeah, just keep that in mind. And again, if you're going to use Chat GPT or any of these AI generated, responses, please take the time to humanize it too and make it your own words as well, because I can always tell when something is generated from Chat GPT and not updated, because it's just kind of a little bit awkward, a little bit not quite, what maybe a human answer would be. I mean, I can always tell because maybe somebody modified it, but I'm just telling you, like, if you really want the job, put your own personality into your effort. Because I always ask for a letter to, say like why you want to be there, who you are. And the personalized ones are a lot more, they stand out a lot more if it's just an auto-generated thing. And for crying out loud, if you do that, make sure you update the name of the company that you're trying to get the job to. That's happened. I'm like, okay, I got a cover letter and it says, "Dear so-and-so from your competitor's agency." Obviously, they just applied to my competitor. So that definitely is a turnoff and will not get you to the top of the resume pile. So be very diligent and careful and proof your work and communicating and just checking your stuff that, even if you're typing on your cell phone as a response, check your work. I'm guilty of it too. I get it. But in your position, if you're the one who wants to get the job, then prove to me that you can proof your work, because that's going to reflect on you. If you did work for me or work for us, then we want to make sure that you have the ability to just get the grammar and proofing and all that accurate. Other things that you can do is get referrals. If you know somebody that I know that you can have you introduced to me, referrals work so much and so well because recommendations come a long way, right? They go a long way. And if somebody is going to introduce you to me, then that weight carries a little bit further, because now I'm interacting with the person that's recommending you or introducing you, and they're going to carry some weight. So anyway, those are some things that I can tell you just after having gone through a hiring process that could help you get hired at your next job. All right, with that, let's get into our next interview. Welcome to the Marketing Expedition podcast. I'm your host, Ray Allen. I'm the president and CEO of Peppershock Media and the founder of the Marketing Expedition community. And today we have Brent with us. Welcome to the show, Brent.
Hey, Ray. Really glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And you get to call in from Boston. Yep. Do you say it like that?
Boston. I'm a Californian, so you will hear. I grew up in a rural part of California, rural and university town. So people ask me if I'm from the South all the time. I don't sound Bostonian.
Well, it'll be fun anyway. I think all of us have different dialects from wherever we're at, and it is true. If you're in Florida versus, East Coast, West Coast, or Minnesota, right? All over the country. So Brent, just give a rundown a little bit more into your where you were until where you kind of are now and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so the ending point, I mean, I said to you in the outset, our work at Winalytics is all around building personalized buyer journeys
Mm-hmm.
from marketing into sales. If you personalize the buyer journey, we all know you get more ideal customer leads that
Mm-hmm.
convert at a higher rate and they expand faster. Personalization for us means you don't talk about your product until you know your buyer customers why. What are they trying to accomplish? What's their role expectation? Who are their peers? I was a revenue leader for 12 years before starting Winalytics about 10 years ago. I started out life as a PhD social scientist, so a
Oh,
strange background to be a
okay.
revenue leader. I did a lot of qualitative research, and at Rand, I was trying to interview busy bank and insurance executives and telecom executives, and they honestly could care less about my academic pedigree or Rand or research. I got really good at just telling them what was in it for them and their
Mm-hmm.
team.
Mm-hmm.
Why join my research project? And I'd put it in my email outreach, my voicemail outreach, and I'd start the call that way. So I got really good at buyer personalization as an academic, doing qualitative research. And then I went to the commercial sector that was supposedly so innovative in this way. And everybody just pitched their product,
Mm-hmm.
website product pitches. This is before the content kind of marketing thing, but it was, hey, let's position our product, let's sell our product. And I was like, why? Ask your buyer why they're talking to you, and you will do a lot better. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had 4 successes as a revenue leader, and then I started Winalytics.
I like that you call it a revenue leader. That's an interesting phrase, right? It's more than just sales, right? It's more than just being a salesperson, but a revenue leader. I'm gonna really have to think about what that really means. I think that's great. And that is that a term that you just kind of created, or is that a normal industry sort of thing that you have come across before?
No, I mean, we use that because to your point, like if you're thinking about the buyer into customer journey,
Yeah.
what that means is that marketing, sales, and customer success or account management all have to be talking with the same language. It's not about us. It's
Mm-hmm.
about making it easier for my buyer or customer to connect across us. And
Mm-hmm.
if you think about it that way, a good revenue leader has a major and then lots of minors.
Yeah.
They talk well to their teammates, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you are actively collaborating on building that personalized journey.
Well, and it can mean so much more than just the customer, right? Like you said, the team too. If you're a revenue leader in getting the team on board to think about revenue too, which not always
Yep.
is the case, right? Sometimes the creatives or the other types that have nothing that want to have nothing to do with profitability and making revenue. They just want to make pretty pictures and be happy in their job. But everybody has to think about how they can make things more efficient and like you said, deliver to the customer so that they get what they need and want, and then life is good, right?
Correct. I mean, it's a great way to think about it. One of our key things we do with teams is build playbooks, right? That
Mhm.
first is your buyer personalization playbook. How do we all message value, common language for messaging value? But then every team goes to market in a different way. So you have your demand gen playbook, your prospecting, sales, et cetera. What's
Mhm.
key is the idea that we have a playbook, right? We
Mhm.
all go to market in a similar way. And guess what? If you have a playbook, you keep score. Which
Yeah.
plays work, which plays don't work. And we agilely iterate because you got to have a scorecard to know if you're
Mhm.
uh, on the right track. And honestly, that creates accountability, but it also creates excitement. We all want to know we use our time well,
Mhm.
right? We were
Yep.
working right now with a company that sells into a couple of higher education verticals. They've ramped up their
Mhm.
expectation for activity to own the front of the funnel. One of the gaps we pointed out to them, that's great, but right now you have no measurement about what's working. And your
Yeah.
team will do it for about 90 days and then they're going to burn out. Activity for its own sake, burn
Yep.
people out. But if you're working with your team on crunching what's working, what can I test next, where are we breaking through, that's fun. That's exciting.
Yeah, I think if you can set out goals and people know what they're going to achieve, then that's what I always say. You know what? If you achieve those goals, then you get raise in pay, right? Because it kind of works in tandem, right? If you achieve the goals, then you get the raises. But if you don't, then you won't, because it's not going to produce any outcome that's going to allow us to be able to do that. So even if people are not motivated by money, I think they can still be motivated by those goals that are set in that scorecard, right? They want to see it continuously achieve and achieve. I've noticed that when we started using scorecards years ago, it has this effect on people, right? Especially those who are highly competitive. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I feel like if you don't measure what you treasure, you're not going to even know if you are successful or not, right? So tell me some of the things that you measure on those scorecards that you recommend for the clients that you work with. What are some measurable items that you've seen some success in that people have done, and you've seen kind of this, transformation of people doing what they need to get done?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know like sales and marketing aren't supposed to get along, but there are a lot of sales teams and marketing teams that get along well. And I think the good ones, obviously, you want to measure reach and engagement, right? You want to measure how many people are clicking through on an ad, or how many people are coming to your website, downloading an asset. But I think it's really important then to, as a team, figure out, okay, how do I connect that MQL to SQL? How do I
Mm-hmm.
connect, right? That what is driving higher quality sales accepted opportunities? And when you crunch on that together, it's like it helps you figure out your ideal customer better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It helps you figure out your messaging that's working, or content. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing. I mean, I just thinking about ways, and sometimes you can automate that. Sometimes it's a little bit more manual. Sometimes, in
Mm-hmm.
academics, they talk about correlation is not causation, but in the real world, often correlation's all you have,
That's
right?
right. Sometimes it's
Right.
true.
You go
Yeah.
ahead and 14-day sprints, and how are things going, and you double down on things that are working. So that's one thing. I mean, just the MQL to SQL conversion and getting a sense of what's working. I think the other thing, I don't know if you're familiar with Mark Robert's work from HubSpot. He was the chief revenue officer from 0 to 10 million. He wrote a book called The Sales Acceleration Playbook. He now runs an
Yeah.
investment firm called Round Two. I'm getting that name
Okay.
wrong.
Yeah.
But I say that because his thesis is really you shouldn't be measuring early funnel conversion. You should be measuring lifetime value and
Mm-hmm.
time to adoption.
Mm-hmm.
And so ways of measuring quickly which are your most successful customers, either because early on they get wide adoption, right, or multiple use cases in
Mm-hmm.
play, or because they renew and expand at a higher rate. I think just thinking about whatever data you have to measure, get clearer on who your ideal customer is, you
Right.
will grow faster just because you're going to focus more time on ideal customers. So, two things
Yeah.
that are often undermeasured that I think can help growth a lot.
Well, and you mentioned HubSpot. I love getting, because they always have wonderful blog articles, and of course they're so good at like capturing your email, and then you get to download the information, right? And I have definitely worked with. They have all these wonderful spreadsheets, and so one things we can do is also measure customer acquisition costs, and then also the lifetime value. And like you said, if you can spend less to acquire them, right? And you said adoption rate of when they're going to buy from you, truncate that time, spend less to get the right kind of client, then things are working. But yeah, sometimes people don't even know. Well, I don't know how much I spend. I don't know how much I, in time value. I don't know what I'm doing. It just we just see what works and then hope for the best. That's not really a good strategy, right?
No, and I want to go back to what you said, measure the things you treasure
Yeah.
early.
Yeah.
I mean, it starts with a commitment to measuring the things you treasure. And honestly, it's going to be a process. Like, what data do I have? What data do I need? What can I easily? But if you commit to saying, I mean, you're saying it doesn't have to be money oriented. It can be, I want to be better at what I do. I want to be more of an expert, right? In that framework of kind of, mission, autonomy, expertise that motivates people at work. Well, be more of an expert at what you do. And if you're not measuring how you're winning, then it's hard to say you're an expert at what you do. You're just doing stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I've noticed that with our team too. If we have a big I call them smarter goals: specific, measurable, attainable, relatable, time based, ethical, and recorded. So we put them all up there, and it's just the component of seeing them visually and then being able to speak to it out loud and like have accountability and just knowing that things are getting done and dialed in. It's a very big difference to have that where people can see the accomplishments that they're making and then the goals that they've set and then actually met is a big, for me, I love to see it when people get all excited about a goal that they've accomplished. And it can be just a small little thing all the way up to a huge thing, right? And in sales, I feel like that if people don't have those benchmarks of where they need to start and then be able to continue to go, then they're like you said, after 90 days, they're just going to get burnout and it's just going to be frustrating for everyone. But tell me, when you say you put together playbooks, I want to know a little bit more about that process of going through and, what does a playbook look like? Are you scripting things out? Are you giving them, guidance? Are you helping them uncover some of the goals that they could set? Tell me more about your playbooks, Brent.
Yeah. And do you want to talk on the marketing side or the sales side or both?
Well, let's do both. You get to decide first. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, I mean, on the marketing side, if we start with a marketing audience, I mean, to us, a playbook means a campaign sequence, right? Where you have, well, it starts with your buyer personalization playbook. Like, let's think about what your personalization categories are.
Mm-hmm.
What do you help your buyers accomplish? Is it driving revenue? Is it building engagement? Is it building process efficiency? Is it a different team experience?
Mm-hmm.
How would you know? What evidence do you have or what stories, right? So let's start with what do you help your buyers accomplish? That's a personalization category. Goals. What buyers are you selling to? Roles, because they're going to care differently about that. And then we have peer segment variation. Everybody sells into multiple segments. SMB is different than mid-market, is different than enterprise. Telecom is different than financial services, different than manufacturing. Which of my goals and personas matter the most? So you can spend some time just thinking on one page, like for a goal area, what's my value prop? Who
Mm-hmm.
cares about it? Who's the
Mm-hmm.
buying group? That's
Yeah.
a personalization play.
Right.
But now what you need to do is create content. You need to create sequences and campaigns around that. So the question is, what's your best messaging, but what's your best content? Because we know content tells a story. And so we talk about content journeys as one of your key plays. Anytime you have a personalization category, you need a content journey that guides the buyer journey.
Mm-hmm.
Often content, people think about how much, or they think about what assets. So I'm building so many ebooks, so many blogs, so many infographics. Okay, that's all great. But at the end of the day, only thing that matters is what story about value are you telling at the
Mm-hmm.
top, middle, and end of the funnel. So think about content journeys are a key part of any marketing playbook.
Mm-hmm.
What are my top of the funnel assets? Blogs, infographics, video snippets that quickly grab attention, start to tell my story, start to tell differentiation.
Mm-hmm.
Middle of the funnel where they can start to see themselves in the solution, customer stories,
Mm-hmm.
checklists, guides, right? Anything that help them to self-solution. Oh, this is what I have and this is what I don't have. Bottom of the funnel is conversion, which is kind of those, thick case studies or your ebooks, your research projects, your webinars with other thought leaders, like where you're now selling through to other people and just saying, yeah, we're all that. And
Mm-hmm.
so content journey is much more important than a content strategy that talks about ebooks,
Mm-hmm.
webinars, right? Tell a story with your content. That's
Mm-hmm.
a key part of your playbook. And then build campaigns that test different messages and different content assets through digital ads, through outbound prospecting, through SEO to
Mm-hmm.
figure out which part of your messaging and which part of your which part of your content really works.
Well, and you said something I think that is so important when a customer, like you said, I think you said self solves. and then they've suddenly just sold themselves on your solution. I love it when that happens, because then you don't have to try so hard, because they want what you are giving. They want the value that you're providing. And if you can set the stage for that, man, is it so much nicer and easier to be able to then work with them, because they want to be a part of what you have to sell. I think that's great. We need to do that some more often.
So, and I'm just going to ask your audience a question, and I'm going to give them 5 to 10 seconds to think about it before we answer. We'll be a little bit Socratic here. What are the top two friction points in a end-to-end funnel, marketing to sales funnel? Number one, MQL to SQL conversion. We all struggle with it, taking people that are engaged, getting them to accept the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, had a first call. Only 37% of first interactions have any kind of second interaction.
Wow.
I didn't set enough value. So now what you just said, Ray, is this self-solutioning. You got a checklist that says how we solve a problem. End of the call, seems like you're unsure whether you want to bring in your colleagues. Well, let me just send over this asset.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or on your website, they've come to download it something. Hey, here's an asset for you to see for yourself. Here are 8 things you need to build a better content journey. Just go through. How many of them do you have? Or maybe you want to have a dialogue about how you could fill some of those other ones. So self-solutioning assets and the work we've been doing, we started to do a benchmarking project around some of this. It's the number one miss. Those middle of the funnel assets that activate your buyer either on the website or after a first call.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, you're right. And I think the whole idea of being able to follow up and just consistently keep your information in front of them where they can get to a point where they can buy, because not everybody is always ready to buy right now. And when you talk to them too, like that's partially, I think, why what did you say, 37% of the calls don't go anywhere, because they're just not in the position to buy at the moment. But then keeping that top of mind awareness. And I love that you said, send out the assets that make sense to them, that are customized to each of those categories that you're thinking about. That's awesome, Brent. I'm sure I don't need to throw a bunch of statistics and percentages at you for you to know that most of us spend too much time staring at screens. Being able to consume your content on the go means that your clients and customers can listen and learn from you without being tied to their desks. With Hello Audio, your customers can put their phones down, power off their PCs, close their MacBooks, and get the information they need from you while they're, let's say, walking a dog, doing a jigsaw puzzle, washing the dishes, maybe when they're in the car or exercising on the treadmill, sunbathing in their garden. Well, Hello Audio makes it incredibly easy for you. No more hours spent trying to figure out tech settings or trying to make a square peg fit into a round hole. You can click publish on an audio feed in a matter of minutes and have control over who accesses what. So visit peppershock.com/offers and sign up for a free trial of Hello Audio. So let's dig in a little bit more. Tell me more kind of your background, Brent. Like, how did you get to, you said that you were the revenue officer and you kind of got all this, but when you started this company, what was it that was kind of the catalyst that said, I got to do this. I got to do this on my own and bring and build the team. Like, tell me a little bit more about that. I just love to hear those kind of things when it's like, yes, this is what we're doing and why.
Yeah, honestly, it was success and failure, the mix of those two, right? I was an academic who was good at selling, and I wasn't getting paid what I thought I was worth in the academy. And I was like, I got to go find my last year around, I brought in, it was either principal or co-principal investigator on $3.5 million in research grants. And they sat me down and said, right, Brent, this year you're getting a 5.5% pay raise rather than a 3.5% pay raise. So I was just like, I got to do something different.
So much more.
So with no commercial experience at all, I found a job in a division of Kaplan that was selling to international students. And I'd lived abroad twice and I spoke languages. So I got that job.
Yeah.
I then proceeded to have 4 pretty quick, well, not quick, but over 4 revenue leader roles. I had 4 growth successes. And every time I took them from being product pitchers to focusing on buyer personalization, same
Mm-hmm.
playbook. And by the
Mm-hmm.
end, I was like, I could do this for a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't have that insight as I left the Revenue. I thought I was going to start a software company to look at funnel analytics and sales analytics,
Uh-huh.
right? But I've
Uh-huh.
never built software. So I tried that for a couple of years. Well, we actually got some progress, but people wanted to pay, for a custom consulting engagement, they wanted to pay, kind of SaaS 15, 20K a year. Wasn't going
Yeah.
to scale. But what was working was my consulting as a fractional CRO. I was
Nice.
like, screw the software. I'm going to
Let's
the
go where the money
services
is.
route. And I just, started to double down on the success there. And we built out our playbooks around positioning and then, sales and then account management and then marketing.
Oh, I love that. And I think there's definitely a lesson to be learned there because sometimes entrepreneurs get started and they get so fixated on what they think is going to work that they've got their blinders on and they don't see outside of what they're so focused on that is working, right? And I'm glad that you recognize that, Brent.
Well, Ray, I appreciate the plaudits. I think I got exhausted. I don't think I recognized it. I think the market just
Yeah.
raised a little bit of money and there wasn't any more money coming because we hadn't made enough success. So I was kind of told, your dream of being a software millionaire is not going to happen. So get
Not
a
going to
real
happen.
job.
Not this time. So, Brent, where do you see yourself in the next year, six months, year, 2 years, 5 years from now? Like, where's the industry going for you? Where do you see yourself in your company growing and scaling and expanding yourself?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we are, I think, in our own positioning, kind of realized this idea of personalized buyer journeys. It
Mm-hmm.
presents a new, I mean, everybody talks about the marketing to sales divide around leads or culture or whatever. The reality is, right now, the biggest problem to solve is the fact that 80% of the buyer journey is done before you get to a sales conversation, which means you got to speak really clearly and consistently about value across that journey. And then in the first and the second conversation, so we have gotten really good at this idea of buyer personalization at scale around
Mm-hmm.
personalization categories. And that's kind of what we're scaling around, working on both marketing and sales budgets. And sometimes we start on one side or the other, and then we go to the other. Our big thought leadership effort for the year is going to be, a state of buyer personalization 2024, and just looking at how well people are doing that journey,
Mm-hmm.
what the gaps are. And I'm kind of sharing some of the things we're already learning, like this self-solutioning assets is a big problem in the industry. The second thing I'll share that your listeners can
Mm-hmm.
fix really quickly is people totally undervalue customer stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's the
Mm-hmm.
fourth most common type of asset. If you look at the kind of Demand Gen Institute research, it should be number one. And it
Mm-hmm.
should be number one for two reasons. One, only customer stories, or the only time you go as a vendor from you and me to we,
Mm-hmm.
that as peers are solving a conflict problem.
Yeah. Oh,
That's number one. It
that's
just changes the conversation when you're sharing success with a peer. The
yeah.
second thing is peer stories are the only thing that works across your entire funnel. Think
Mm-hmm.
about it, top of the funnel testimonials, social cards with a little
Mm-hmm.
graphic, a little call out, a little outcome,
Mm-hmm.
right? Middle of the funnel, you start to do some stories. You give slides to your salespeople, right, to share as a follow up. End of the funnel, those thick case studies that you send to a CFO or a
Mm-hmm.
CEO saying, these guys, they're it. So it's
Yeah.
the only asset that works across the entire buyer and customer experience. They're harder because you need to work with your customers. They're harder than blogs or ebooks or
Yeah.
things, but they're the most important asset and totally underrepresented on most websites.
Yeah, it is sometimes hard to get your customers to capture the moments. Not that they don't want to, just timing, but it is so powerful to have those testimonials because then it helps accelerate that word of mouth advertising that everybody wants, word of mouth advertising. Well, what are you doing to help accelerate those things where other people talk about you rather than just you talking about you, right? It's good to have those ratings, rankings, referrals, recommendations, and then rewards. All of the
Yep.
things. So Brent, I want to know for our audience, how can they get a hold of you if they want to work with you?
Yeah, easiest is probably just connect on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only Brent Keltner on there. They're also, always happy to dialogue by email with people if they want to pose a question and expands my thinking. BKELTNER at Winalytics, WINALYTICS.com. They're welcome to reach out via email and happy to dialogue via email. And if it makes sense, we'll go to a Zoom call.
Excellent. Brent, any final thoughts that you'd like to leave with our audience that we didn't talk about yet that you'd like to share today?
I would just encourage your audience to think about their last sales experience that was really bad
Uh, mhm.
and spend some time thinking about why.
Yeah.
And 90% of the time, they're going to get to the fact because it was all about the other person. And nobody really took the time to figure out what I cared about. So we always encourage, whether it's a retail experience or what, you're on a Zoom with somebody, what was the last time you had a really bad buying experience? And usually because people don't personalize to you. And it
Yeah.
just makes it visceral how much we need to, in this environment, focus on, it's all about what's in it for them. It's not about what's in it for me.
You mentioned that, and immediately I just knew right exactly the last, sales call that went terrible for me. And you're right. I mean, it was kind of awkward and not great because the person that I was, trying to pitch to or talk to or, get any information from was just not having it. Like they had their arms crossed. They were just like not impressed by anything I could possibly say or do. And I almost like, this is just bombing so terribly because they just don't want to, engage. And trying to ask them questions was like yes and no answers, even though you're trying to get them to do more. And it was just like, is this person having a bad day or is it me? Like, what is going on here? And trying to get them to talk and tell me more. And man, it was just so awkward.
For your sales, listeners, right, or BDR, SDRs, people try and get us the product pitch all the time and don't take the bait, right? I mean, you ask a few follow-up questions. At some point, you're like, doesn't sound like there's anything we can solve together. So, thanks for your time. And move on.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it happens. Other times it's great. And like, you can listen and you can help see what their issues might be and how you can solve them. And I love to do that. And I love to make connections and that kind of thing. But yeah, sometimes it just isn't going to go your way and that's okay. Right. I mean, you get more no's than you do yeses. So, for those that are starting out, I always tell them like, if you aren't getting no's and you aren't getting yeses, then you're not doing enough to get the no's that you will in order to get the yeses, right? I mean, that it's not always going to be, everyone's not always going to say yes to you. Yeah.
That's a great point. I love hearing you say that. The no's are a pathway to your yes.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Brent. I really appreciate your time today and all of the wonderful things that you shared with us. Thank you.
Yeah, Ray, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening, the best thing that you can do for Brent and I is share this with others that that need to hear what he had to say today and give us a review. We will do some shout outs for all the reviews that we get and you'll be on the shout outs that I do monthly. So hopefully you can give us a nice review, give us feedback. We always love that. And until next time, everybody, enjoy your marketing journey.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Expedition podcast. Want to continue the journey? Don't miss out on new episodes. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Wouldn't it be great if there was one place you can go to get all the latest information and tips about marketing and advertising? The Marketing Expedition community is that place. People like you gather in our online community to build relationships with others and find the latest marketing trends, tactics, tools, and technology. We help you build your brand and your bottom line. Start your adventure today. Visit themarketingexpedition.com to find out more.